The U.S. economy grew 2.5% last year. Unemployment was low. The stock market hit record highs. And somehow, you still can't afford to save money. That's not a contradiction. That's the system working exactly as designed. Just not for you. Right now in America, there are two economies running at the same time. One is doing great. The other one is where most people actually live. And the gap between them isn't shrinking. It's the widest it's been in over 30 years. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how those two lanes work, why one group keeps pulling ahead, and what the difference actually is between people on each side. Here's the headline version of the American economy in 2024 and 2025. GDP growth, 2.5%. That's healthy by any standard. Unemployment, historically low. The Nasdaq was up. The S&P 500 was up. On paper, the economy is fine. But inflation hit 2.8% in early 2025. Wages grew around 3 to 4% annually. So on paper, wages beat inflation by about 1 percentage point. That sounds like progress. It isn't. Not for most people. That 3 to 4% wage growth is an average. It includes the people at the top pulling the number up. For a lot of workers in retail, food service, healthcare support, and logistics, real raises were closer to flat. Some went backward. And inflation at 2.8% is the average too. Rent, groceries, and car insurance went up faster than that. The things that take up the most of a paycheck went up the most. So the official numbers say things are fine. The lived experience says otherwise. Both are technically true, because they're measuring two different groups. Lane 1 is the asset lane. Assets are things you own that grow in value over time. Stocks, real estate, a business, index funds. If you own assets, the last few years were very good to you. The stock market recovered from every dip and kept climbing. Home values in most cities are still 30 to 40% higher than they were in 2019. Portfolios recovered. Net worth went up. Lane 2 is the income lane. This is where you trade time for money. A salary, hourly wages, a paycheck every 2 weeks. If your wealth comes from your paycheck, inflation hit you directly. Your $60,000 salary in 2021 buys less in 2025 than it did 4 years ago. Prices moved. Your paycheck didn't move fast enough to keep up. The core difference between the two lanes isn't how hard you work. It's whether your money is working at the same time you are. The top 10% of U.S. households have an average net worth of around $2.65 million. The average middle-class family has a net worth of around $169,000. That's not a gap. That's a different planet. The top 1% of Americans now hold 31.7% of all U.S. wealth. That's the highest share recorded since the Federal Reserve started tracking this data in 1989. The bottom 50% of Americans, combined, hold about 2.5%. One more number. The top 10% of earners now account for nearly half of all consumer spending in the U.S. That's up from 35% in the mid-1990s. When economists say the economy is doing well, they're mostly measuring what the top 10% are doing. That group is genuinely doing well. The data isn't lying. It's just not describing your situation. School taught you to get good grades, go to college, get a job, and work hard. That advice isn't wrong, but it's incomplete. It teaches you how to succeed in Lane 2, the income lane. It doesn't tell you Lane 1 exists. Most financial advice aimed at young people starts and ends at budgeting. Cut subscriptions, make coffee at home, save a little each month. That's all Lane 2 thinking. None of it addresses the actual structural divide, that wages and assets operate under different economic rules. Wages are subject to inflation, taxes, and the labor market. Assets compound. They grow while you sleep. They don't get taxed the same way income does, and they don't depend on you showing up every day. Budgeting is useful, but budgeting alone keeps you in Lane 2. It optimizes how you spend your paycheck. It doesn't build a second engine. Assets compound. That's the mechanic. It's simple and it's brutal. If you have $10,000 invested and it grows 7% per year, After 10 years, you have roughly $19,700 without adding a dollar. If you have $0 invested and save $200 a month for 10 years with no returns, you have $24,000, and you had to work for every cent of it. The person with assets didn't do more work. The money did the work. That's the structural advantage of Lane 1. Now, scale that up. The top 10% don't have $10,000 in assets. They have millions. At that scale, the compounding isn't a supplement to their income. It is their income. The paycheck becomes optional. At 10 to 12% of U.S. households still living at or near the poverty line, despite consistent GDP growth, the "a rising tide lifts all boats" logic clearly doesn't hold. Some boats aren't in the water. You don't cross from Lane 2 to Lane 1 by earning more. You cross by owning something. That can be index funds. It can be real estate. It can be equity in a business. The specific vehicle matters less than the underlying mechanic. You need something that grows independently of your time. For most people starting from zero, index funds are the most accessible entry point. You don't need $2.65 million. You need to start with whatever you have and let compounding do what it does over time. The hard part isn't the math. The math is straightforward. The hard part is that Lane 2 costs keep rising. Rent, groceries, insurance, and leave less room to build Lane 1. That's the real trap, not laziness, not bad choices. A structural squeeze where the cost of surviving in Lane 2 keeps eating the resources you'd need to enter Lane 1. The economy isn't broken. It's doing exactly what it was built to do. It rewards ownership. It punishes dependence on income alone. And until you understand that, it will always feel like you're working harder just to stay in the same place. The real divide in America isn't rich versus poor. It's the people whose money works for them and the people still forced to work for every dollar they have. The question is, which lane are you building your life in? If you want to understand the rules most people were never taught, subscribe, because the people winning this game already know them.